Hi, Naj.
Hi, Savir. How you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Sun's out. I don't know if it will be
it's
for
nice,
much longer. Thank you so much for joining us today
Anytime.
for this podcast. So, can you tell our membership a little bit more about 2020 financial planning and why did you decide to start the company?
So, 2020 financial planning is we're a holistic financial advisors advisory practice. We are partnered with the Open Work Network, which is really cool because I really enjoy them. I enjoy working with them. And they've got a great proposition, but they match my ethical values of the company. But it was a bit of a rocky road. I always kind of wanted to start my own business. I had a small will writing practice years ago after leaving the legal profession. But 2023, I was just working in an IFA, independent financial advisors, and unfortunately I had an operation. I got sepsis, very serious sepsis, and I really nearly died. So I was rushed to hospital, and and I had a month off work, but I developed something called off the back of that I developed something called functional neurological disorder. So there was like brain trauma left over, and I was basically paralysed. So I took most of 2023 out to exit work, which was hard because I love the job, I love the place, but it just was it was something unfortunately throws you in. But I sort of spent most of 2023 up to 24 just sort of learning to use my left. So my left side was completely paralysed, and loss of sort of visual sort of stuff and processing and speech problems, and not very fair. And just getting over the fact actually, me and my wife, unfortunately, she had a miscarriage at the time as well. So it was just kind of it was a really, really tough year. And I kind of look back now, I just decided to start a business in the middle of it. I usually just thought this is not, but I think there's a point at which you go, I always say sort of as a spiritual belief, and I do, I'm no longer religious, but I do have a very strong spiritual belief. I pray every day, I meditate every day, that something comes out of it. And for me, it was like, I don't think I was supposed to be employed anyway. And I took the opportunity to start a business. I'll probably have a hard time in employment because I still get seizures. It doesn't affect my work, but it can be, you have to work around it.
Yeah.
And I do say that as sort of someone's classed as a disabled entrepreneur, not always visible disability because I manage myself, but it's that is part of the reason. But ultimately, it was I always had this thing. I wanted to do something really different in the financial space, something quite fresh, and it was the best thing to come out of a massively horrifically hard year.
But it's so positive, though. I think just the way that you've come through that and then developed something so positive. I think it's amazing. It really
Thank you.
Very inspiring.
I said that at my launch event, and it was really nice that everyone from YABA was there actually. And but I would say it was something that was thrust upon me. It wasn't something that was kind of. But then I suppose crisis can bring out the best and the worst.
It's timing as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
it was the right time. So, what does the ethos of 2020 financial planning mean to you, and how does it shape the way that you help clients?
So I have, this was the first thing that came out of 2025. So a really good friend of mine at Durham University, he messaged me saying, what is it you want to do? And I said, well, I used to be a solicitor, and I became so I'm not an arrogant, but I don't think I'm hindered by much in terms of I can learn things. It's not about what I do, it's about how I do it. And I came up with like the 10 values, and I always talk about these, is that there's 10 things we do in our companies. We add value, we innovate, we seek honesty, we act ethically, we help the community, we're leaders of ideas and people, we embrace humility, everyone can contribute, strategic planning, not risky behaviour, and we support each other and our clients. And those were the 10 things that just came off my head, and I was like, that's it. As long as I'm doing that, I know I'm going to be onto a winner. I've always had this thing as well, sort of from a spiritual belief, that if there's an area of my life that's not going well, it's because I'm not of service in it. And that can sometimes mean, in your marriage, are you actually doing what you should be doing? Are you, in your business, are you doing a little bit more than you're paid for? Or are you doing something? In terms of how it shapes, we innovate. So I've come up with 10 sort of financial wellness seminars I'm selling to companies that are really starting to take off. I've got another project going where I'm building an AI SaaS platform for like money education. I really want that to have social impact, as in sort of just to get financial literacy to people that need it, as well as people that everyone needs it. Few people have it, but we spend 10% of our company, 10% of my time is spent doing CSR, sort of financial literacy stuff.
Yeah.
That, so for example, I've gone to sort of the Penny Appeal and done workshops on content for kids about how they should spend money and stuff about how they value money in terms of sort of do they get involved in sort of illegal activities just for sort of £70 pair of shoes, which is not really. So speaking, my ethos is one of them is you determine the value of money intrinsically, and that's been really good for business. It's been very rewarding as well, but it shapes in terms of sort of strategic planning. There's a lot of risk in having a business, and it's not fair for me to pass that risk on to my clients.
And I think it's the current climate as well, as somebody like yourself that's got such a strong value system, could really, really support, people, businesses, young people. It's just a really good way of thinking.
There's a good thing about it is that if you have that set, and I think this is actually something I've never sort of done in my own personal life as well. I have, but I didn't know I was doing it, is that if you know what you stand for, you know who you're supposed to be with and you know who you're not.
Yeah.
And actually, if there's someone that goes, well, thanks, but it means that you're going down a road that you don't actually want to go down.
If it doesn't resonate with your
and it'll bite. I've learned as well. It'll bite in your ass at some point. Yeah. It'll come back and kick you in the head. It's like, I knew I shouldn't have gone down this road. That doesn't mean that that opportunity is a bad opportunity, or it's just not the opportunity for me.
So, what do you think is broken in the industry today, and how do you see 2020 financial planning leading the shift?
So, at the moment in the UK, there's two things generally around finance in the UK. One is the level of financial literacy, and one is the age of financial advisors. So the average age of a financial advisor in the UK is 58 years old. So that's a lot. That's a very old, and about 90% of it is male. And that's a very old subset of the population that are set to retire in the next. It's called the silver wave, I think we call it, but it's like essentially there's going to be tons and tons of advisors going. At the same time, we've got this huge intergenerational wealth transfer, where a record amount of wealth from baby boom is going to pass down the intergenerational line, and it is a sad, unfortunate that coupled with the fact of financial literacy. So 73% of the people in this country do not reach the accepted standard of financial literacy compared to European counterparts. But we're one of the most developed economies in Europe. So you've got a lot of money going into the hands of people that don't necessarily know how to use it. And there's a coupling there of like there's no guidance. And I do think financial planning is generally, it's a really noble profession. When you do help people to realise their goals, or protection, especially with my to stop them losing their house and things like that. It is something that needs to be done. I just think there's so much more that in terms of just the financial literacy piece about finding what we're doing, because we haven't had a good reputation in last years. Like one of the reasons why people don't see financial advisors is because they don't trust them, which is something and that's not the consumer's fault. That's our fault. You can't place that on the consumer. That's our fault. And there is something there about actually how do we lead another generation of financial advisors. I personally would like to, I'm very much invested in marketing at the moment and working really hard to grow the company. But my next step is to take on an advisor, and I'd like someone that is young and smart and hungry, and as opposed to the old guard.
Possibly.
Mainly because it's unaffordable.
Possibly an apprentice or something.
I think
go through your company and instill those values. Really,
I think it's one of those things where I think employing people is always going to be a challenge, and it's something that you need to. I've just taken on 2 MSc students for a project that I'm building in building like a literacy AI SaaS platform, and they're doing really well. And the one thing I found actually is that I don't know anything about AI and tech, but the one thing I realise is when you look at people and you talk to them, you get to know who they are, and you get to know whether they're actually, if they're just, excuse the language, bullshitting you or not. And you can often see through that in people and go, right, okay, you're the person. And even if they are good at a job, if you don't want to work with them, you're not going to get a good outcome anyway. I think the next step is actually finding someone that wants to understand the industry. Because I'm still learning, but it is something someone that wants to go on that journey, possibly become a mortgage advisor, and then or do something completely different. Come up with something completely different that they need to do.
It's a vast field, isn't it?
It is.
There's
There's a lot to be done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity in this. I think there's a lot of opportunity generally for business at the moment. I know it's hard times with the economy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of financial volatility, but there's a lot of opportunity. I think that doesn't get enough of a voice. I think we were here with the gentleman from Lloyd's. I can't remember his name.
Najinder.
Really, really great. That was a great event. But he was sort of saying, we're very much going on an aggressive marketing campaign because there's a lot of people that are just are going to stagnate or even go under. And there's across many fields, and there's going to be a lot of those clients that are going to be wanting advice and wanting value and wanting guidance. And someone that is younger that can spot that's not set in trends, that's not entrenched. Because it's difficult to change people when they've been doing something for 20, 30 years.
So, Naj, corporate social responsibility, for some companies it can be a tick box exercise. Obviously, you've already alluded to the fact that it's not for yourself. But, why do you think it's crucial, and how does your CSR policy create real change?
So, in terms of financial literacy, I think it's mutually beneficial. So, one thing I do embrace is the fact that CSR and it can be used as a way to showcase the company, which will then, it attracts more clients. And actually, it's a good thing to do because you see the whole spectrum of. So, for example, if I'm going into sort of areas that are maybe more deprived or lower income areas, you do start to meet people that are very hungry, very smart, but don't have the tools. And I think it really drives change because it can be a tick box exercise at the start. And there's nothing wrong with that, actually, because you do have to satisfy for companies that tender. They always get asked, do you have now it's common, they evaluate the CSR criteria. But if it's a tick box exercise, it's the first step for it actually becoming something that people care about. There's a company in West Yorkshire called Haworth, and they have the Haworth Foundation. I've seen a couple of events. I've never met the owners, but I've always thought that they really, really live and breathe it.
They embrace that.
And it's that kind of thing of embracing it, and it gives something different. I think it's kind of like if you just in your business, owning your business, it can be a metaphor, it'd be quite grey and quite dull. Whereas like doing something else that is more that broadens your horizons, it makes things more colourful, it makes things more vibrant, and you always uncover some opportunities that with other organisations. And for me, it's been great because no one else does this in terms of sort of financial literacy, the way that I've tried to really push it. Sometimes it can actually make a bad day good. Like do you know what I mean? It's something.
It's like generating that goodwill, isn't it, and helping.
It is good. Goodwill is important, but I've been very lucky in my life. I don't make any bones about that in terms of the fact that some things not, but I was given a start, and one of the things that actually is true is that it's not just wealth that gets passed on, it's parents pass on financial literacy. I've been very lucky in my life, and some people aren't, and it's not the fact they're not smart, it's just the fact that they've not there's not the tools and the foundations aren't there. And ultimately as well, the more financial literacy comes about, the more people have money, the more my business does, the more clients there are. And it raises all boats, but it's just having something to believe in as well is important. I think having some sort of like, you either stand for something or fall for everything. And having something like that is important.
I think it sets yourself apart as well, doesn't it, from all the other institutions. So financial literacy is it's a really key part of your mission. We've talked about it a lot. But what do you think are the biggest misconceptions that people have about money, and how can better education help individuals take control of their financial future, because it is so important, isn't it? Just across the board, I mean, with the current climate as well.
So, biggest thing I'd say the biggest misconception from my ethos around money coaching is that it's actually the external value of money is determined by inflation and political events, but how you intrinsically value money, that's up to you if you have that kind of awareness. And that can be really important because people sometimes will look at the value of what they're buying or what they're spending or what they're doing with their money, and if they're aware of that, they will make it on the fact that actually, you know what, I might buy this, but actually it's going to decrease my autonomy. I'm not going to have as much disposable income. I won't have I won't be able to invest and reach my future goals. The other thing I generally think of is money behaviour is about money, is about numbers, and it's not. It's actually, a number is just a number, but why you make the decision. You can give two people, can earn the same amount of money, but one will be in debt and one won't. And it's nothing to do with the fact that they can't add up, or they can't. Everyone's got calculators on their phones, but the reasons why they make the financial decisions is much more of an emotional, subconscious thing than it is a to do with numbers.
Wow.
And the final thing is that it's overly complicated. One thing about financial services which I cannot stand is the use of jargon. So much paper. It's almost like financial advisors give a big report, and the number of pages means they're just more important. And it's not. It's like I have to give reports, but I just give a bullet point summary over the top of like one page. And the amount of people just go, if obviously I talk my clients through reports, but they don't. They don't understand it, whereas actually it really isn't that difficult. It is and it isn't. It's just how it's taught, especially for like neurodiverse people like myself. I can get to grips with it, but the amount of people like very well off sort of neurodiverse either employees or business people that are starting to come to me over the fact that actually I explain it differently, is much more, is very empowering. But yeah, those are my top three.
I think it's your approach as well. The fact that you're catering for so many different sort of sectors as well. You understand, there's a different way to approach everybody. I think it's just amazing. So, what would you like to share with our members? Is there anything else that you want to share, and what's the best way for them to contact you?
So, I think in terms of the share, there's a lot of panic at the moment around sort of like obviously we've had new US president. God bless him. But it seems to be he seems to be a better marketeer than he is a president. I'll be honest, but I don't know. Yeah. That's just my opinion. But there's world conflicts and all that sort of affecting humanity. But the thing I'd say is don't panic. Don't make a rash decision without thinking it through, because a lot of people are. These are the times when people will make a decision, like they'll withdraw everything in cash and crystallise their losses, and it's like, well, no, hold on a minute, stop. You didn't need to do that. And just don't panic. And if you need to get in contact, my website is 2020fp.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn, or come to your good self. I'm on the YABA website.
Indeed, you are.
Yeah.
So what's the future hold then for 2020 financial planning?
We're building an AI SaaS platform that started. That started in it's a generative AI like platform that I can't say any more about because it's got protection. It's got protection now, but it's just that's under development. That's a 5-year project, but we're hoping to sort of bridge the gap between sort of going into sort of wellness and sort of how people perhaps maybe aiming at sort of like, I don't know, we might start a separate CIC with it. Some people have suggested it. A lot of people have just come to me and said, would you do this as a separate sort of CIC? I think I'm a startup, so there's so many different ideas at the moment. But where we are working out is just the next 2 to 3 years is like customer segmentation, and then 5 years plus is then the plans I've got. But it's a growth thing,
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
It's just now building it. I've got.
Naj, I've just learned so much in this podcast, and I just think you're amazing, and it's just so nice to be part of the journey.
Yeah, and it's nice to be part of YABA as well. Actually, I like the ethos of it. It's a good platform for my business, and it's a good way to. And it's just the people are nice. I do the people outside of networking events actually go and see you the social, and that's a good thing. But yeah, I've got a lot from it, so thank you.
No, do you know what? Thank you. It's the members that make the organisation. So thank you very much.
Not a problem.